Hello, welcome back to the channel. I am Dominoid and I have bought a Super Famicom off the internet. And like Chris Martin might say, it's all yellow. So yes, we have a Super Famicom. I never had a SNES. I never had a Super Famicom back in the day, and I picked this one up very cheap on eBay. It's in very good physical condition. There's no bits of plastic missing. There's no damage to the casing. It is just horrendously yellow. This is a very bad example of how white and grey plastics tend to turn yellow over the years. Also, when you turn it on, this happens. And by this, I mean absolutely nothing at all. Now, I know it's currently not plugged in, but that makes no real difference, quite frankly. In a nutshell, this does not power on, and it is very yellow. And the powering on issue, I'm pretty sure I know what that will be. So we're going to open this up in just a minute. I'm going to see if I can make that a very quick repair. If it's a longer repair, this might become a multi-part video. The yellowing is the main issue that I need to try and fix today. Now, basically what happens is that plastic, of course, being oil-based, can be flammable. So in a lot of white and grey plastics, still to this day, they add bromine, and that is what gives it that characteristic yellow hue after a while. What happens is ultraviolet lights and oxygen react with the bromine in the plastic, and that chemical reaction turns it into a yellow colour. It's very similar to things made of iron or containing iron becoming rusty. The difference is, though, rust is a one-way effect. So once something's on rusty, all you can do is scrape the rust off. You can, you can polish it by physically, wire wool and so on, removing the outer layer of metal and exposing some metal that's not rusty underneath. But ultimately, if something's rusted through, it's rusted through. You can't get rid of the rust. This is actually a reversible chemical reaction, and we will be looking at that in just a moment. But first of all, let's open it up and see if we can work out why it doesn't work. So we have got everything that we need here on the bench. The obligatory nice cup of tea. We've got our multimeter right here. What a multimeter is. We've got the Famicom itself, and we've got this little doohickey here. This is a screwdriver, obviously. The bit on the end, it's either called a game bit or a security bit, depending on who you ask. And the idea is Nintendo didn't really want people to be opening up their consoles. There's no parts inside that they consider to be user serviceable. So they put those security things on in the hope that people would not open it. Of course, nowadays, with the advent of the internet, it's incredibly easy to get hold of screwdrivers or screwdriver bits that do the job. So yeah, it's not really stopping anyone anymore. But back in the day it did. And to be fair to Nintendo, they were always very good with their warranties. They only very recently stopped supporting repair for the SNES. Now, I've left all of the screws in here, so I'm just going to very carefully turn that upside down so that they all drop into the casing. And oh yes, that is, as expected, quite dusty and dirty inside. So we will give that a bit of a clean in a moment. But there's one particular part that I'm interested in. So I'm gonna probably put that in camera. So let's move the casing there out of the way. And there's a little cable here that connects the power switch. So I've moved that. I don't know if you can see there, but just there, we have got a fuse. This is a very particular type of fuse. It is called a pico fuse. It is designed to blow very quickly. And the reason I think it's this is because of an interesting thing about the SNES. Now the SNES uses a DC adapter. It doesn't convert power inside it. So you would think that that means that you could use any DC adapter on it. And the socket size for the power adapter for the DC in, if you can see there, it is exactly the same as the SNES. Now the thing is, the Super Famicom and the SNES do not share a power supply type. In fact, the polarity is different. So if you plug a SNES power supply into a Super Famicom, it will fit. As soon as you turn it on, it will trip that fuse in order to stop it from breaking the rest of it. So if that fuse has worked, everything in here should be safe, if indeed that is the case. And I suspect it may well have been. So we're going to turn the multimeter on and we're going to flip it over to this one here. Okay, now that is a continuity test. So the idea is that that tells you if there is a circuit or not. So at the moment there's no circuit. I touch these together, makes a noise. If my theory is correct, we run these across here. And yes, so as expected, absolutely nothing happens. Let's go side on so you can see. And just to prove that it's not just that this is damaged, see if I touch a bit of the casing there, then it is connected. So yeah, you can see if I'm touching legs of the chips here, they are connected. There is a circuit. So yes, our problem is in fact this. So let's get that out and we'll get it replaced with a brand new fuse. Now I bought 10 of these because you can't actually buy them individually quite as cheap as you can in a packet of 10. I'm gonna need to change screwdriver bits now so that I can get the internals out. So we've got a few screws here that hold everything in place. I'm just going to remove the board to make it easier to work with. I probably can just about get that out without taking everything out, but it's just a hassle. It's not worth doing it, and the risk of slipping and damaging something when you're working in a confined space like that, it's just not worth the few minutes that you'll save by choosing not to do it. So I'm going to take everything out. Very careful to avoid touching too much. There's a little ribbon connector here that goes to the joystick section on the front, so just be careful with that. I'm going to leave it in, but you might want to remove it. Right, so I've zoomed in a little bit here so you can see exactly what we are working with, and here you can see the offending fuse. It's literally just held in by these two solder pads on the legs. So what we're going to do, the solder has been heated up. I'm just going to add a tiny little bit of flux. You don't really need to do this, but I like to do it. So add a little bit of flux to the end of the soldering iron, and then we are going to tin the tip a little bit. And now we get a pair of pliers. We're going to just gently warm up that solder. I'm trying to do this over myself here, which is not the easiest way of doing it. Just want to melt the solder and that will come away quite comfortably. Heating the leg itself. There we go. There's the first side off. Now we're going to do The same again here. I'm going to move around a little bit actually. So this might not be the neatest soldering job you'll ever see, because it's actually a little bit difficult to solder and make what you're doing visible with a camera. But there we go, we've got that off there. So we'll just give the soldering iron a quick wipe off of camera. And then we are literally just going to replace that into those there. So you can see the new one here. It does have legs a little bit too wide, so we're just going to take the tin snips, see those there, and just cut a little bit of that leg off. And now, whoop. About the right length. I think that looks good to me. Remember, this doesn't need to be a neat job, you just need to get a connection. So if I can do this with my relatively terrible soldering skills, then you can probably do exactly the same. So as before, we want to get a little bit of solder on the tip of the iron to make a decent contact. I'm going to pop this in position here. I'm going to just melt that existing solder, because you don't need to resolder this completely. This is, I mean, you can, if you want to be really neat, remove the solder completely. I'm just going to move that over a little. You can, if you want to be really neat, remove the solder completely. Use a solder sucker or some soldering wick. I want this to be neat-ish. So yeah, you can use a little bit of wick, some solder sucker if you want to make this perfect. But personally, I don't feel it's necessary. I'm going to add a little bit of extra solder actually to that. I'm not overly comfortable with it. That is a terrible joint. There we go. It's a bit better. As I say, I am not by any means a good solderer. So this is not a tutorial in how to solder well. And I'm sure lots of people will be ready in the comments below to tell me how bad I am at soldering. Honestly, I don't mind that much. I'm going to put a bit of pressure on this to try and get it to go a bit further down. That's better. That's much better. Just a tiny bit more solder on that pad there so it looks how I want it to. There. Right, that is a terrible soldering job, but it is now back where it needs to be. So we're just going to let that cool.
So we cool? Yeah, we cool.
Okay, so we are cooled and the contacts are now joined. So what should now happen is if I get the multimeter probes out again, we should, there we go. So we're going to turn our attention to the casing now. Really, really yellow. So first thing I'm going to do is, you'll see here, there's just some little clips that hold in the power button and reset button. Just going to pop those out. Might need a little bit of persuasion. There we go, that's one. And then we push in these little clips here. Which should allow me to take off the top fascia here. So that now, again, it will need a little bit of force, but don't give it too much force, of course, because you don't want to break anything. There we go, and that just pops off like that. And now we have got the empty casing. Do I want to de-yellow any of these bits? I don't think I do. I want to de-yellow this bit here, though, the power switch goes, you can see. But you can see there the contrast in what the plastic should look like compared to what it does look like, if I can get the camera to focus. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab ourselves a bottle. Here we are, dropped it on the floor. This is Jerome Russell BBlonde. This is in fact cream peroxide for hair. It's 30 volume, 9% peroxide. Added to a bleach, it will bleach your hair. And I use this in order to make this lovely blue shade, which it turns out is not my natural hair colour. But what we're going to do here is just apply this to the casing. So we're just going to pour it on, and then I'm going to use a paintbrush to make sure we get into all of the nooks and crannies. Don't worry too much if you get any on the non-discoloured plastic. No one's going to see that anyway. That's why it hasn't discoloured. Want a nice liberal coating of this. Get plenty of it on there. Try and avoid getting too many bubbles because we want to make as much contact as possible. Yeah. And the reason for using the cream peroxide is it's just easier to paint it onto the case. You can do this with liquid peroxide if you can get hold of it. In order to do that, you are going to need to submerge it entirely. So that means you're going to need considerably more peroxide than you will do for the cream sort. So for that reason, I'm favouring here the cream peroxide, but you can use whatever you feel most comfortable with. Okay, right, so that is, I'm pretty sure that is nice and evenly covered now, and there are no parts which do not have peroxide on them. So peroxide in its own will not actually do anything here. So there's a second component which will be needed, and that is in fact the component which started it all in the first place. It is UV light. So I've got myself a little UV light here. I'm gonna plug that in. And all I've done, I've just clamped this to the workbench here. Although I have clamped it over where the power switch is, so if we're going to jump cut to me having got the turned on. Right, so we've got here just underneath the workbench, we've got just a little table thing, and I've put some scrap paper on that. I'm going to pop that there. Move that up a little bit. We can see they are nicely under the UV, and now I'm just going to leave them there and go to work. Just a side note here: you really should wear gloves when you're handling peroxide. That's not dust. I've just washed my hands, and yeah, I've bleached my skin a little bit. So do be careful. You should really wear gloves. I'm just lazy and don't care that much about my skin. So here we are. It's been 8 hours now, and there's still a lot of yellowing, but there's definitely a noticeable difference there, especially on that bit at the top. So I think with a bit more time, this is going to look pretty good. This part here, I can see there is some difference there. It's very patchy. The sides are pretty much done though, so that's good. So I'm going to give this another coat, and we'll come back again tomorrow morning probably. So you can see we're now approaching the 24-hour mark, and yeah, there's some improvement, but not the improvements I was expecting there to be. I hope this isn't going to be a huge disastrous failure. I think because it's definitely getting lighter, I'm going to persevere with it. I'm going to give it another application and see how we go. So here we are at the evening of day 2, and I think that is looking a lot better. Look at that. That is getting back towards the colour it's supposed to be. So I think this might just work. But we are going to leave the black light running. I'm going to paint some more of this lovely stuff, and we're going to leave it again overnight, and we'll come back again tomorrow and see if it's looking any closer to the correct colour. And it's the next morning, and again I'm not seeing much difference overnight. I'm wondering how much effect this lamp is having and how much is actually just sunlight coming in from the window. But we shall see. I'll leave these again for today while I go off to work, and report back again later. So we've reached the end of day 4, and I think we are getting very, very close to the right colour. Just going to zoom in here. What I've done, I've popped that front plate there on top of the bottom, which, as you remember, was not discoloured, just so you can see how close we're getting. That is almost the right colour. A bit of the peroxide, well, quite a lot of the peroxide seems to have dried now a bit. So what I think I'm going to do is give this a rinse, reapply. I'm going to do it overnight and another day, I think, and then see how we go. I'm just going to go reapply now, and we'll see you guys in the morning, which will be a few seconds for you, because, you know, this isn't real time. That would be shit. So we're at the start of day 4 now, and I think, to be honest, I think that looks pretty much the same as it did last night. Again, we're not getting a huge amount of difference overnight. The bigger difference is made during the day when we've got the sunlight on it as well. So I'm going to give these another coating, and then we'll come back after work and see how it has gone. So it is the end of day 4, and I think we are very, very close to done. There's a little bit of yellowing left here, but if you can see, almost all of it has gone now. That's looking really, really good. I'm really pleased with this. Yeah, I mean, I think like some of these are basically done. I mean, look at that. You can't see there any difference in the plastic colour at all. The same here. I think that front section there, I think that's pretty much done. Still a tiny little bit yellow at the back here. That was the absolute worst part of it. So I'm thinking by the end of the day tomorrow, I think this is going to be done. So day 5, and once again there's been not that much change overnight, but we've got some real sunshine coming in from outside now, so hopefully that will help. So I'm going to reapply, and hopefully we'll get this completed today. So it is lunchtime on day 5, and I've moved everything over to the windowsill because sunlight seems to be the way to go. But I have kept the black light in the mix, it's just precariously balanced there. and quite frankly I need the space that it was occupying to do some more recording, because I didn't realise it would take quite so long. But it is working, so I'm happy with it, and I shall keep persevering. So we have reached the end of day 5, and it's looking really good. Look at that, there's bits of it here which are basically already done. There's just a little bit of yellowing here on the back, a bit on the side here. Don't know how well you can see that under the UV. So it's just a few little niggling bits that we're going to leave to complete. Probably I will give it another scrub and reapply in the morning, pop it on before work, and I think tomorrow's going to be the last day, because I reckon this is all going to be done. So that's the morning of day 6, and we are pretty much where we were last night, I think. So I'm going to scrub, reapply, and I will see you after work. And finally, at the end of day 6, we have a grey Super Famicom. I think that is probably about as grey as it's going to go. I'm happy enough with that. You can see a tiny little bit of discoloration at the edge, but I'm not fussy enough to worry about that. It looks almost as good as new, and that's good enough for me when we're talking a 30-year-old console. So yeah, I'm happy with that, and I'm going to go and clean all this shit off, and I'm going to reassemble it and show you the finished product. So here we are in the retro gaming room, and I have got everything set up. We've got the ridiculously short cable of the Japanese controller. Everything is plugged in. I'm using a Mega Drive 1 power supply to power this, because for some reason that is perfectly compatible. And let's flick the switch and see if this worked. Kinda. Let's just see if that... I mean, I don't know if this cartridge actually works. I'm not going to blow on it. I'm going to resist the temptation. Pop it back. Let's try this again. Well, that did nothing. Okay, let's try a different cartridge, shall we? Because I don't know if that cartridge works or not. I bought that off of eBay. It's untested. Here we are. Let's try. Dream on. Aha! It works! Look at that! There we go, look. So, yes, just a very small amount of soldering skills required, a lot of patience, and a few bottles of very cheap peroxide, and we have a perfectly working Super Famicom with a Japanese game in, which I don't understand any of the words to. Am I setting a name here? Let's do whatever this is. Yeah, and oh, how do I? Can I not go to the end? There we go. End. I think I've gone back to the main menu now. Oh, for God's sake, just can I just start a new? What's Japanese for new game? There we go, we've entered a level. Oh. Oh, I just got killed by a balloon. Oh dear. And I got killed by a can of Coke. So anyway, I am going to carry on being very, very bad at this Japanese platform game. But the main thing is that takeaway from all of this, oh bugger, is you should probably watch the screen while you're playing a game. Anyway, the Famicom works, so yay! That's going to be the thumbnail for this video, I think. So thank you very much for watching. I have been Dominoid, and this has been the repairing of a Super Famicom. If you'd like to see more retro gaming content, then please do consider subscribing, following, liking. I am on social media, both Facebook and on Twitter as Dominoid, and I'll have more videos for you very soon. I will see you soon, but until then, thank you very much for visiting, and goodbye.